Tonight's topic is keeping up with amateur radio news and events. I'm Anthony Luscre, Kilo 8 Zulu Tango. This is my contact information, k8zt73@gmail.com, and my website at k8zt.com. This presentation has many links in it. So tiny.cc/qst-arn, or you can shoot the QR code. I'll also have that available at the end. By the way, QST doesn't stand for the QST magazine. It stands for the Q symbol that I have news for you. And I've been playing around with AI, so I asked AI to give me a picture of an amateur radio operator keeping track of amateur radio news around the world. So many of you start your day with local, national, and international news, whether it's your daily newspaper, TV news show, broadcast radio, online news websites, or social media sites. Next, you might check on friends via social media sites like Facebook or Twitter, now known as X. Check your email. If you're a sports fan, you probably check on your favorite teams and players. I suggest as an active ham, you may also want to add a dose of amateur radio to your daily news routine. There's two different types of news out there, and I'm going to talk about both of them. I'm also going to talk about some ways that those affect what you follow. The first is push news. This is news that is pushed, sent out to the consumer at regular intervals. So things such as email groups, bulk emails, bulletins or newsletters with subscriptions, social media like X or Twitter, feeds like Facebook, blogs, podcasts, videos, etc. with subscriptions. Notice the with subscriptions part, because there's plenty of them that don't have subscriptions. Some social media apps have notification functions, and of course, good old snail mail, things that come in the mail. You don't have to tell them to send the mail. It comes out every day, almost every day. Pull, on the other hand, means that consumers must go to a site or search for news on their own, and the biggest part is they have to remember to do this. So they have to get in the habit of doing this, and if you get out of the habit, it's very easy to stop doing it. I'm very much in the habit every morning of going to the New York Times crossword page and doing the 4 different puzzles that I do every day, and it becomes very natural. But if I forget to do it for a day, it's a little harder to do it on that second day, and if I forget 2 days in a row, I might forget about it altogether, but I'm still doing it. So some sites, such as websites, you have to go there to find the news. YouTube, unless you subscribe, and that, again, a subscription is the key if you want it pushed to you. Online aggregators, which we'll talk more about later. Club websites, apps with no notification function, books and magazines, whether they're paper or online. Now, if they come in the mail via paper, you do see them come, but they get set aside. Maybe you set them aside, or maybe your other people in your household set them aside, and you forget about them. Now, with most people reading QST online, again, you have to remember to do it. Bulletins or newsletters with no subscriptions, you have to remember to do it. The problem with Pool is you need to remember and take time to visit the resources. I'll give you some ideas later to combat this problem near the end of this presentation, or you can jump there now. Well, I'm not going to let you jump there now, but when you have the links to this, you can just jump to that. So on my website, I have a whole page called Amateur Radio News, and I'm going to click on that, take you out. As you see, the links take you out. So this is a site that has a bunch of amateur radio news on it, and I need to do a quick adjustment here because my night light is turned on. And if I don't fix it, everything's going to fade to gray color. Okay, that should be better. So there's a number of news, podcasts, different resources, some that don't even exist anymore, such as the CQ magazine logo that's still there. We'll talk more about that later. So I have just a few links for news, and you can explore some of these on your own. The ARRL has a news page. There's news on the front page, but if you use this link, it actually takes you to the full news page, as opposed to what you see on the home page with just the most recent gathering of news. Unfortunately, the ARRL has really cut down the amount of news that they're covering. A few years ago, this page would fill up every day. Now it takes a couple weeks for this to fill up. They're just not covering things outside of the ARRL as much as they used to, unfortunately. They also have an audio version of the news, and that's recorded once a week. So it doesn't keep up quite up to date as quickly as the written news does, but you can go to the audio news site and listen to it. EHAM has two different types of news. They have the news page. Now, most of the news on the ham.net, eham.net site is generated by readers and the publishers of the site. So this manager AB7RG puts a lot of these stories together, but other people also contribute stories. And when you go to the second one, the article section, those are almost all contributed by readers of eham.net. Oh, by the way, you can do it yourself too. I've submitted many articles to that. Amateur Radio Daily News Resources is fairly new. It replaced something called Amateur Radio Daily. Called Ham Radio Daily, but now they have Amateur Radio Daily. It was part of the Ham Weekly, but now they have a daily news. And this is fairly new. It just came out, I think, in the last couple months. And they have news from around the world that they're pulling in. I'm guessing this is an aggregation site, and we'll talk more about aggregators later, but take a look at this, try it out. They also have a bunch of things here where you can submit news. You can go to events, you can go to recent news, you can go to their newsletter that they have, and this is the original site before they came out with the daily one, the weekly site, and they even announced here that they've just created this new site. So take a look at the Amateur Radio Daily News. And by the way, I'm going to show you a couple hundred links. You're going to need to go into the links and actually explore them on your own to get the full benefit of these. This page will give you memories of the 1980s and 90s. It's really like old style HTML, but it has good news on it. And they have a lot of different stuff here. So I would take a look at this also. Now, sometimes what happens is sometimes some of the news gets a little outdated too. Amateur Radio Newsline has been around for a number of years. A lot of people, excuse me, rebroadcast their show on their local repeater. Our local club does it right before our Monday night VHF UHF net. And you can do the same thing if you'd like. If you go out there, you can download the recording. Before you had to go call a number to record it, but now you can record it from the web and take that recording and play it. You can also read the text version. I often find myself hearing a news story in the background when I'm listening to it on our net, and I'm missing something like the spelling of the word or something. So I often go back to this website to check and see exactly what it was that I was missing, or to find more information. QRZ.com has a section on news. Close a few of these while we're waiting for that to open. Okay, anyone that doesn't open has to wait until I come back later. Oh, there they go. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Let's go to the QRZ site and see if we go directly that way, if we get a little better response. And the news tab is right here. So you can go to where it says Amateur Radio News. There's also general announcements, special events, hamventions and conventions, videos and podcasts, and silent keys. You probably didn't realize this is all on QRZ. Most people just think of QRZ as the place you look up a location when you hear a call sign. But you go into the Amateur Radio News, and here's some of the news. And the first piece of news is that happy birthday, QRZ. They're 30 years old, and some other information here that's tagged at the top. But lots of different things that people submit. So this is all driven by readers of QRZ who submit news articles. Also, if you go to the QRZ page itself, you'll see some of the highlights of the news just on their home page. So many of the things that are on the news page are here also, but there's many, many more if you go up to the news and go to the Amateur Radio News section than you'll see on this particular page. You'll just see a dozen or so here. And check out the other things, the general announcements, hamventions and conventions. And if you haven't thought about listing yours here, make sure you get it listed on this calendar in addition to the ARRL's Hamfest calendar. I haven't checked this one before. I'm going to see what the silent key section looks like. And it looks like people submit them online here. Okay, so that's QRZ. Now I mentioned aggregators a couple times before, and an example of the aggregator can be found on a number of different sites. What it basically is it pulls information in and puts it in a sort of a tab format with a headline and then the news story and quite often a link to click to read the whole story. You can build your own aggregator very simply, and I've actually done that for our local website. So I'm going to go out to our local website and show you the aggregator that I built. And believe it or not, it took it was extremely simple to do, and I'm not a program type person. And here it is right here on the right. You'll see that it's pulling in information. We'll let it sit there for a second. You'll see that it keeps updating and scrolling. And of course, as soon as I say that, it won't do it for a while. There it goes. So what I'm doing is pulling information from the Amateur Radio Relay League and other resources such as eHam and QRZ, and I'm pulling them into this, and it'll show news. If I want to find out more about any of these, I can simply click on it, and it'll take me out to that. So here's the ARRL Systems disruption from earlier this last week. So this aggregator is built very simply to pull in that information from websites that have an RSS feed, and you can do it from a number of different sites. So the news aggregators use RSS feed. They gather news from multiple sites, and believe it or not, here's a site where you can create your own. It's very easy to do. This, believe it or not, is a website for surfing. It has nothing to do with amateur radio. It has nothing to do with news aggregation. But they have this tool on their website, and it's a free RSS widget. You choose how you want it to look. There's different choices of layout. You can choose different styles. You can put in all the web pages, places you want to pull information from. And you can have titles for it, and all this is put together. When you're all done, it generates HTML code for you to paste in your web page and be ready to use it. You can also just simply make this a page that you open up in your browser, and it will pull that aggregator up for you personally. So if you don't want to share it with anyone else, you can have your own personal aggregator. This is free to use. There's information on how to use it up here. And once you're done, you just get this HTML, and any browser will display your newly created aggregator, and it'll keep updating over time. Occasionally, if it gets broken, that means that someone's changed one of their links, so you're going to need to go back and check and fix that link. But that's available from surfingwaves.com. Now, mailing list and social media groups. Just like general news, much of the amateur radio news we get daily is from citizen journalism, an aphorism for AKA people like us. It's people who post the information on social media. They're not necessarily journalists. They don't necessarily make sure the news is true or accurate. They're just posting it. So a visit to your local favorite social media or quick search finds hundreds of amateur radio groups. Remember though, the news from these sites is only as good as its source, and many of the posts and posters may be high on the melodrama and low on reliability. We had an incident very similar to this a couple years ago where someone on YouTube posted some information about a change in the fire service fees for repeaters in California. Unfortunately, he did it rather melodramatically and caused a big uproar that could have easily been handled in a much more sane and controlled fashion. So just remember, when you're reading things on there, it's just the same as the other garbage you read on social media sometimes. If you're interested in the most up-to-date information, though, you're going to need to follow these lists. So I do check Twitter each day. I do check Facebook every day, but I take it all with a grain of salt, and I ignore a lot of things, but I do find good things and the announcements that people are making. It's one of the few places you can ask and get questions and it's answered almost immediately. Mailing lists and social media groups can be one of the best sources. Now, I prefer mailing lists to social media groups, and I'll talk more about that in a second here, but both of them can be very useful. Just remember, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. So here's some mailing groups that have a lot of different amateur radio websites, groups.io and mailman.qth. When you click on the groups.io, I'm already signed in, so you're going to see that it has my name. But the first time you go there, you need to create an account on groups.io. Once you've created your account, then you can join groups. And the way you join groups is you click up here where it says find a group. And when you do that, you can choose to type in what you want to search for. Let's say I want to find QRP groups. When I do that, it'll show me a number of sites that have QRP either in the name or in the description of the website. So I could join the 4 states QRP group, CR kits, MCHF, the DIY 5990. These are all QRP radios, by the way. That's what these names are coming from. And QFox and QCX and so forth and so forth. You can also create your own group. When you create your own group, there's 2 ways to do it. You can do a free group with limited features, or you can pay money and create a group that has more features. But you can search in here for anything you might be interested in. Let's say you're interested in Yaesu. These are all websites that have at least some focus on Yaesu, and there's actually 132 sites listed for they have the word Yaesu in it. If you're more of an ICOM person, there we go. We got a bunch of ICOM sites, 236 pages of those also. Or Kenwood. Now, a lot of them are very specific to specific radios, and if you have one of those radios, I'd really suggest you join the group because it's probably the best place you can get information. And the mailing lists are not like social media. People only post things here when they have something to share with the group typically, and they're very quick to help newcomers and answer questions. So once you find the groups you want, you join a group. So let me find a group here that I can join. I'm interested in the TS590. Unfortunately, I've already joined this group. Here's another one. Maybe I'm not joined this one. I think I already have. But you can join them. There's a button to join them. But first of all, you have to sign up for an account. Once you sign up for an account, you can change settings. You can do some things. But you want to do that. You can also, here's where you create a group. You can also just look for the most popular groups that are out there. I guarantee they won't be necessarily the groups you're interested in, but you can do that. Mailman.qth. A little bit simpler. It's been around a lot longer. It was very popular. If you click up here where it says a directory of list, it'll show you all the list. Come on. We'll come, there we go. This one, your friend Control F or Command F on the Macintosh will let you look up things and search through the list. There's QRP. There's 14 ones that list QRP in them. And I can jump around and find those, and I can click on it for more information. Here's the New England QSO Club. When you join this, you need to put in your information, and then you join, or they actually call it subscribing. Once you subscribe to the group, you will get information from the group. So I really like mailing list. There's also private and branded mailing list. Your local club might have a mailing list. An organization, you might have a mailing list. This branded mailing list, the ARRL mailing list, are actually Group.io sites that are branded with the ARRL logo. So they pay a fee to Groups.io to have a branded logo series for their sites. We'll talk more about those in a minute. So here's an example. A couple years ago, right before Field Day, someone sent out a message. On sale at Harbor Freight for $60 USA, comes with a flag, sections lock, heavy duty, put up at 17 feet, loads up on 20 meters. It's an aluminum flagpole, telescoping. He put this information here, and a bunch of people mentioned it on the list. And I thought, that sounds great for Field Day. And when I went to my Harbor Freight site, I found out it wasn't $60. It was actually $54.99. And they had them at my local Harbor Freight. So I bought one, brought it home, and then I responded to the list with more information. Pros, it was only $54.95, seems sturdy. The top ornamental ball unscrews for easily from the top, and you can put in one of those 48-inch fiberglass mass pipes that everyone sells at Hamfest. and make it 4 feet longer. Also isolate your antenna from the aluminum. So I talked about how to do that. Some of the cons: it isn't 4 feet when it's clapped. It's actually 5.5 feet long when it's clapped. It's not really thick, so you may not want to clamp on it too tight when you're clamping to something, or you may damage it, or when you clamp on a beam, you may damage it. So just be aware of that. So this is the kind of thing that the group mailing list can work really well with that doesn't work on other types of social media. But if you are interested in social media, here's 9 sites that have a number of amateur radio things on them. Some have more than others. You can be the judge of them, but take a look at some of these. Ham Signal is one of the few that's dedicated strictly to amateur radio. It's actually a social media site for ham radio. Unfortunately, it isn't really one of the biggest sites, so you don't get the kind of exposure that you do on a lot of sites with the number of things, and it's much more popular in Europe than it is in the US. But I take a look at it. There's a lot of activity in Turkey and Germany are the 2 major contributors to this site. But if we all jump in and get an account, that could increase it. It also has a logbook and DX cluster and some other features that would only be useful for amateur radio. So that's Ham Signal, and it's the one right in the middle here. Now, the ARRL has both bulletins and newsletters. The bulletins include a whole list of bulletins that are referred to as the W1AW bulletins. We'll talk more about those later. And then general bulletins. The ARRL also has section and or division bulletins, newsletters, and mass emails. And I'll show you where you can find those, because a lot of them you don't even realize are there. So the W1AW bulletins can be gotten via email, on the website, or you can listen for them on the air. These are the ones you can copy the CW, listen to the voice, copy ready, but there's general bulletins, DX bulletins, propagation, satellite bulletins, and they still do the Keplerian elements, even though most satellite tracking programs now can suck those in automatically from the web. And I remember in the old days having to listen to the voice net on 80 meters to get the Keplerian elements and write them down and hope that I wrote them down right so they would work. The general bulletins can be found on the website. They include notification of monthly digital edition of the QST, so you know when it came out. They have the ARRL email newsletter called the ARRL letter. They have the ARRL contest update, the Aries e-letter for emergency communications, the ARRL club news, and I think they've recently added another one for NTS2. I'm not sure. There's also one that tells you when board meetings and agendas come up, although they only give you the minimum amount of information. ARRL instructor teacher e-letter called Radio Waves. It comes out once in a blue moon. It doesn't come out very often. The ARRL e-letter, I haven't seen it for quite a while. And publications, announcements, special offers, and the ARRL legislative update. Now, your local section or division may also have great information out there. And I know the Ohio section has something called the Ohio Section Journal, and you're welcome to subscribe even if you're not from Ohio, or you can go back and look at the old issues. And what we do in Ohio is we have something called the postscript that runs every week except for the main week when they run the section journal. So the postscript is a little bit less information. But if we go to the Ohio Section Journal for October, which came out almost a month ago, you'll see that it is 46 pages long. There is one thing in here that's worth the whole subscribing to this, and I'll show you that real quick. And it's not me, even though I'm in here every month. By the way, there I am with my article. But the one I really want to point out is if you're a DXer, as I said, it's a little bit long. If you're a DXer, Bill, AJ8B, has an article every month in the section journal and every week in the postscript. So if you subscribe, you see this is his 303rd article that he's written. And they are great. He has a little bit of intro each time, but then he also has what's happening in the world DX. He has the contest corner. And this is a very short one. Typically, he also has an interview with a famous DXer. He has other information. This is one of the shortest ones he ever does, but his article alone is worth subscribing to this. And you can subscribe to it by going to this link that I have here and then choosing to subscribe, and you get it emailed to you each month, or each week actually. The Great Lakes has, this blog is, I gotta fix this, this is not correct, I'll update that. We have a new director, so there's a new address. And that's one of the things about these. They change over time depending on who the section manager is and who the division director is. So just be aware of that. Now, I keep talking about these, and if you're not familiar with the ARRL structure, these are the divisions. They are regional. The sections are either state, or sometimes like California, there's 6 sections in the state. If you click on this link, it will show you more information on this and the contact information for the director and vice director for every section. I mean, every division, and the same thing with the sections. But what I really want to show you, I'll show you in a moment here. We'll come back to that. Your local radios club's newsletter might be one of the best sources of local amateur radio news. If you don't belong to a club, you might want to think about doing that, and here's a link to find out more about clubs in your area. If you do belong to a club, think about contributing to your newsletter if they have one. If they don't have one, talk to your club and see if they'd like you to start one. Here's 2 examples of unbelievable club newsletters. One is from the Surrey Amateur Radio Communications Group, and the other one is from the Radio Club of Tacoma. And I want to show you what their newsletter looks like. And why did it not pop up immediately? It is up here somewhere. There we go. This is the digital version. You can also download as a PDF. Now, it looks more like a magazine. And notice there's 120 pages in this newsletter. This comes out once every 2 months. The features, they always have historic features. They always have technical features. They have local club news, but then they also have things like Marlon Brando's Ecological Dream in Tahiti and news from the RAC, Radio Ramblings, a very good technical article, summer course for students at a school. Here's an article on Pico Pico, or Pico Pico. Here's one on an oscilloscope clock project, making an old analog face clock out of an oscilloscope. There's some advertisements. There's also some other items in here. There's some antenna projects, a Pi Zero project. I'm not even halfway through yet. And this is free. The other one is from another group in Tacoma, and it's called the Loggers Bark. And we'll just take a look at the most recent issue. This comes out every month as opposed to every other month. And there's over 75 pages in here. And it really rivals most magazines. They always have a lot on their clubhouse. They like to do historic pictures. They have this way back booth, which I always think is fun. They always have an old club picture each month. They have fiction, they have technical, they have computers, they have history. So I'd suggest you take a look at both of these two, the Sark and the Loggers Bark. Now, once upon a time, a simple printed and mailed newsletter was the only news from clubs. Today, that's not enough. Your clubs could consider adding an up-to-date website with news and resources, online public viewable calendar, social media presence, an email list. And I can't believe how many clubs take some of these and put them behind a club-only firewall. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why would you want to not share your stuff and attract new members? A lot of clubs don't have their calendars available to view online. They don't have any of their club meetings. They don't have their newsletters. If your club is doing that, I really strongly suggest that I think you're making a mistake by not making it available to attract new members. You can, if you're interested in sharing news, you can share with sites like QRZ, eHam, places we talked about already. You could write a blog, do podcasting, YouTubes. We'd love to have you do a session on RATPAC if you can come up with something that Dan would like. But that sounds like a lot of work. Do what you feel comfortable with. Share your personal experiences and what you've learned. Start small, do a little at a time. My number one suggestion is focus on quality content, not fancy production. A lot of people can do fancy production, but what we really need is quality content. And I think that's why things like RATPAC are very popular, because we focus on content and not high production values. Here's some bulletins, newsletters, and blogs that I suggest you take a look at. The ARRL on the Air blog. DX Engineering has a blog called On All Bands, and they have technical information, products and reviews, interviews, news and information. And I do have to admit that I write for them occasionally, so here's some articles from me. I haven't done one in probably 2 years, but I still do them occasionally. EmComm has their own internal blog, and let me see if this is still there, because they changed a bunch of links. So let's see if it's still there. No, here it is. So this is the blog. The last one was 2021, so they're not keeping that blog up to date. So scratch that. Solder and Smoke has been around for a really long time. It's very popular. It's a podcast you can play, but now they also have YouTube videos, so it's not just audio like it originally was. And they're in episode number, I can't even see the number here, but it's a ridiculously high number because they've been doing this forever. NG3K has a website that has a lot of good resources on it as far as DXing and contesting news go. He has something called Announced DX Operations, ADXO. And so what he does is he lists all the upcoming DX operations on this webpage. So here's the ones coming up for November. He already has some for December, and he's already starting to do 2025. In addition to the DX, announced DX operations, he also has a tab up here called Contest. And when you click on that, he does just the major contests, about 6 contests a year. But he has the stations that are planning on operating in that contest. So here's the CQ Worldwide CW coming up at the end of November. And this list will grow as we get closer to that time, but it's very good information if you want to work DX or if you're into contesting. He also has a couple other things on here too, which he has this homepage with has a number of different resources on it. But the ADXO and the contest pages are great for people that follow DX. I also have a whole page on DX news and resources. Again, just a few links. This is a neat little thing. It's called the DX World Timetable, and it's very simple, or timeline. It's very simple. They do 1 month at a time. They actually even said there's too many DXpeditions in November, so as it gets closer to the end of the month, when some of these drop off, they'll squeeze more in here. But right now, this is what's showing up. So there's VK9, there's going to be a ZD7, G coming up. Looks like we have FY and XT, and so forth and so forth. This is just a simple little thing that shows you DXpeditions that are coming up in the coming month. The ARRL DX Bulletin. It's one of the bulletins, but you can go back and view them, and they have them archived. For some reason, they're only here through May, and I have a feeling that's because of the issues they've been having with IT. So a couple of things I'm going to be talking about tonight may not be up to date on the ARRL website. If you're into contesting, this is one of the places you have to go. The WA7BNM contest calendar by Bruce Horn. You can go in and view it a number of different ways. The 8-day calendar is the way I usually do it. I can see what's coming up for the week. I can see that the big contest of the week is going to be the ARRL sweepstakes. When you click on that link, it gives you basic information about the contest. Where's the contest apply to? What's the mode? What's the bands? What categories? Number of hours, power, etc., etc. A link to submit your log, and the link for all the rules for the contest. So this is a great place to find all the information you want on contesting. WA7BNM calendar. You can also just look for state QSO parties. You can look for CW only parties, QRP contests, and one of the neat things is you can click on the customize button and you can choose what you want to see, so you can change these. Now, the only thing I have to warn you about, these are all based on cookies. So if you wipe all your cookies out, don't wipe this cookie out, or you'll have to go back and customize it again. Bruce also does a website called the 3830 Scores Contest Rumor Scores. And this is a place where people can post their scores, and you don't have to wait 6 months to see them from the magazines or online. So if you want to see who had good turnout in the CQ worldwide. Now, remember, not everyone submits to this, so that doesn't mean that necessarily you've won because you're the first in your category. So we can see, for example, that the Multi-2, CR3A is near the top, Multi-2 low power, Multi-motor high power. And if you were on this weekend, you probably heard CN3A, and I definitely heard K3LR just down the road from me here. So those are the two that are probably going to finish first in the world and in the US for those categories. So this is a contest rumor site. Remember, it's only rumors, but there's a presentation that Bruce did for the RATPAC group. So you can click on this link. There's also a presentation I did on both of the sites for QS Today Expo. So if you want to watch the RATPAC video or my video, I think you'll find a lot of information. The ARRL also has a contest update page. This is also something that's still being put back together. So the other day it was not completely restored yet. I don't know what the status of it is yet. I know that they said part of it was up, but part of it was still not. So just be aware that some of the results and awards may not be currently available. It looks like most of it's filled back in again. We're waiting for field day to come out in the next couple. I'd say field day should come out in the next 3 weeks. I'm not sure why it takes so long, but that's the way it works. So I also have a whole page on contest news and calendar resources. Bulletins and podcast, the AR Newsline, which I already talked about earlier, the Amateur Radio Newsline, amateurradio.com, the Amateur Radio Weekly, which I showed you a little bit earlier, and the Rain Report. The Rain Report has been on and off over the last couple of years. They stopped doing it, and then they started back up again. And I had to tell you a humorous story about the Rain Report. They often take resources from other resources, and they turn them into audio. One of the places that the Rain Report is done, besides online, is they broadcast it on 160 at 18.060. And you might have ran across this before. And I was working a 160 contest one night after midnight, probably after 2 in the morning, actually. And I was tuning across the band. It was a phone contest. And all of a sudden, I heard my own voice speaking. And it was the weirdest thing to be tuning the radio and hear your own voice coming back to you. The Rain Report was actually playing one of the audio from one of the videos I had done for the QSO Today Expo. But it was so strange to hear my own voice, and I thought I was hallucinating at first, which happens after you're on the air for a long time in a contest. There's also a number of blogs out there, and this site has a listing of amateur radio blogs on it, and there's just hundreds of them out there. Now, some of them repeat, like This Week in Radio, which is a very common one. But take a look at some of these blogs, and if you travel a lot, you can download these blogs to your device and listen to them when you're driving or whatever you're doing. So blogs.radio.i has all this information here of different blogs. There's also a German site, DK1MI, and it's part of the Radio Blogs group also, and they have more information about it there. And if you do a blog or podcast, they'd like for you to submit to them. So contact Michael, DK1MI, and tell him you'd like to have your podcast listed on his blogs.radio page. This is an example of a blog by Thomas Weatherspoon. It's called QRPer.com. And Tom loves to do POTA and loves to do QRP. And he goes out and films his POTA operations. And this is an example of high content, low production quality because he doesn't edit them. He just runs the camera and doesn't have time to edit them. I can associate with him because I have time to create content, but editing is very time consuming. And he does a lot of different things. He also has guest columnists, but he also has categories on the side with accessories, antenna tuners, radios, articles. So here's some accessories. He's also done a whole series on Go kits. So if you're interested in Go kits for field day, for field operations, he has a whole section here on Go kits, and people have submitted. I've submitted a couple. So if you go to the field radio kits section, you'll see that there's different radio kits and stuff to use for radio when you're operating portable. This is a whole thing on pens and writing, but there's a bunch of them out there. Foldable feet, etc., etc. We're going to have Thomas on in a upcoming RATPAC. He was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago, and he unfortunately was in the heart of the area that was hit by the storms in western North Carolina. So he's been just getting by down there north. So we postponed, and we'll do him later in the year. ARRL audio news I already mentioned earlier. There's also something called This Week in Amateur Radio, TWIAR. And it is a podcast, but they also feature things from other sites, Hackaday. They have a lot of stuff on technology. Take a look at TWIAR. The QSO Today podcast has interviews with leaders in amateur radio. This is the one that from Eric Guth. For Zulu 1 UG. He's the one that did the QSO Today Expo. And he interviews various hams. He has over 400, I think maybe over 500 now interviews. I know Dan and I have been interviewed, and maybe some of you have been interviewed. Now, unfortunately, Ham Nation lost its host recently, but there's still all the old issues of Ham Nation out there for you to go through. 100 Watts in a Wire is a very popular blog podcast, and you can go in and view all the different podcasts. And why is it taking so long to load? They have the most recent one. They have episode 432, so there's a number of them you can listen to. And the ICQ Amateur Radio podcast has a variety of resources that they pull from each week, and they have different stories on different topics. I also have a whole list of podcasts and news on my website. Now, let's talk a little bit about magazines. Years ago, there was many amateur radio magazines that you could have arrive in your mailbox every day. Unfortunately, all 4 of these that are shown here, plus many others, have went the wayside and they're now gone. The good news is they're available online. If you go to the Internet Archive, the Digital Library of Amateur Radio Communications, and this gentleman actually appeared on RATPAC in their presentation on Digital Library of Amateur Radio, so you can look that up and watch the RATPAC video on it. This is a great site for finding resources, and one of the resources that they have on the site is RATPAC. Helps if I spell it right. So here's all the RATPAC shows on their archive already. But there's older stuff, and there's like old call books and things that you can find, 73 Magazine, Ham Radio Horizons, etc., etc. This is a very interesting site. The World Radio History, Music, and Electronics publication isn't specifically for amateur radio, and it isn't even just for radio. It also does music. So if you're into early radio, early music, world music, etc., there's a number of different ones. There's a menu on the side here which takes forever to load. It should load hopefully in a few minutes. But you can go to these and find, there's the early radio section has radio from 1900 to World War II. There's the commercial end of radio, broadcast news, information, uh, et cetera, et cetera. I'm still waiting for our menu to load. It's not loading. So just to give you an idea what's out there, there's a ton of things. If you're into music or broadcasting or amateur radio or early radio, there's a lot of great things out here, including audio recordings and magazines. There's a number of non-US magazines out there. RADCOM, Funk is two of them. There's also some specialty magazines from the ARRL, On the Air, QEX, and NCJ, the National Contest Journal. Of course, QST's ARRL Monthly Membership Journal, which now has to be read online unless you're paying extra. And CQ Magazine, unfortunately, the last issue was October 2023. And my November article, which is all written and sent in, never ran because there never was a November 2023 of CQ Magazine. There are archives available, but you have to pay to view them, and I'm not sure what the status of that is right now. So, unfortunately, we lost a very important news source for amateur radio. There's also a number of quarterly specialty publications. Some of these are excellent. The QRP ARCI group has one they put out. The GQRP Club has one called SPRAT, Small Powered Radio Amateur Transmitters. It's fabulous. And I actually cut my teeth when I was just a new ham on the QRP ARCI journal and the quarterly is what it's called, and the GQRP SPRAT. Both of these used to be a smaller format, and they fit perfectly in my lab coat pocket, so I could take them to lunch with me and read them every day when I was having lunch, when I was working. But they're available by joining either of these two fine QRP groups. There's also DXing clubs that have newsletters, contesting clubs, and I have a link here for each type of club, so you can investigate different DXing clubs if you're into DXing. Take a look at some of these, see if you're interested in joining one. Same thing for contesting clubs. And these specialty clubs can be very helpful if that's something that you want to focus on. QRP clubs, and so forth. I have more things on the webpage, which I keep talking about. Now, there's thousands of amateur radio videos out there, pre-recorded, as the vast majority of YouTube videos. There's also live streams via Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, and you know that because you're here for a live stream via Zoom with the RATPAC every week. There's also interactive live meets via Zoom and YouTube. If any of you are, I know a couple of you are Long Island CW members, take a look at the Long Island CW Club. Even if you already know CW, even if you're not interested in learning CW, they have online Zoom sessions, over 75 a week. Everything from boat anchors to portable operations to traffic handling, in addition to all the CW classes. And they did a presentation for RATPAC back a couple months ago, and you can find it on the RATPAC site. It's called Fun Learning Morse Code. The quality of the videos on YouTube and other places runs the gamut. You'll find invaluable lessons and junk. So just be aware that just like everything on YouTube, it's not all great, and you can go down a rabbit hole and spend a lot of time. So just as I say with internet searching, the same thing applies to finding anything on the internet. Find what you want, but know what you found and why it's there. I put together some YouTube channels that I think are good places to start out. And of course, the RATPAC is one of them I strongly suggest. But these are some of my top 20 favorites. And then I also have two other sites where other people have gotten their 33 favorites and their 25 favorites. So between these, you'll see that a lot of them are duplicated on each of the lists. But I find some of these extremely good. The Off the Grid by OH8 STN is worth it just to listen to his voice. He has a wonderful voice for audio. RATPAC, of course. Training resources. The ARRL has something called the Learning Network. They don't advertise it a lot, but I wrote a class on Introduction to Contesting. It's available there along with a number of other classes. You do need to be a member to use it, though. If you're interested in start upgrading your license, go to the ARRL and use the Find a Class to find classes. There's a lot of them being done now that are being done online, so you don't have to worry about where you're at. I have a number of EmComm resources from the ARRL, from FEMA, from cybersecurity and infrastructure, Some other EmComm and weather resources. One of my favorites is the lightning map, but there's also fire maps and other types of things on here. Skywarn, here's the lightning map. We've not had any lightning for quite a while, but I'm sure there's lightning somewhere in the world, but just not around me right now. There's where all the lightning is at. So take a look at some of these. And if you have additional EmComm or any resources that I didn't talk about tonight, drop me an email and I'd be happy to add them to this presentation. Now, the rest of this is going to be talking about ARRL publications, websites, and comms. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of resources on the ARRL website, but what's happened over the years is different people have worked on them. There's been changes. They're still rebuilding from the IT problem. So you'll find that there's not a consistency, and finding some of them are not easy. So I put together some guides on this. Now, some of these pages are going to be changed a little bit because they've changed things since the IT upgrade. Now, the first thing is ARRL magazines, the publications. Members can view CQ each month, QST each month. So the QST, but there's also On the Air. There's also a companion podcast on the air called On the Air Podcast. On the Air is designed for newer hams, I should say. QEX, which is a technical journal, and National Contest Journal. You can read all four of these online with your ARRL membership. And click on this link will take you out to the magazines. You do need to be a member and you do need to log in to get to read those. But in addition, there's also some podcasts. There's ARRL Audio News, which I talked about earlier. There's two podcasts that were very good, but they're now silent keys. Not the person that did them, but the podcast themselves have been discontinued. So Eclectic Tech and The Doctor Is In are both now silent keys, but the podcasts are still out there. There's also a YouTube site. I'm not sure how many of you realize there's an ARRL YouTube site, but there is one, and they do post things on it. They just had one 2 days ago on the new ARRL Mono Beam, or Mono Beam, I guess they're calling it. So this is where the ARRL posts videos. There's the webinars. They haven't been doing the webinars as much as they did earlier, but if you want to view the webinars, you can see the early ones at ghoststage.com, and you can see one of the first 5, which I did. I think I did the third one. And guess what? They've moved them now all to the others. Well, no, they're not put back up again yet. To see all of them, you need to go to the ARRL Learning Network, which means you have to be a subscriber to ARRL or member of the ARRL to get to them. So you can dig deeper, though, into the publications. Now, some of these require ARRL membership to log in, but there's a periodic index from 1915 to 1981 for different, QST from 1915, QXE from 1981, and so forth. So if you click on this link, you can search through the archives of the resources, and you need to be logged in. And then you have to wait for the thing to work right. Come on. Okay. Okay, now I'm logged in. So now, hopefully if I click on the link, it will go to the link and not give me a message like that. So you can type in keywords, author's name, call, and if you know the year, the month, what journal it's in, you can search for it. Now, one of the problems with this is even if the magazine was in color, these are all in black and white. So they're all scanned in black and white, even if they were originally color. Now, this one from August 2013 is not available. Why not? Because the ones that are newer, when the magazines are posted, are not available to view here. You have to go to the magazine itself. So you have to go to the location to 2013 and go back and look at the magazine. So here's one that's older. This is what they all look like. They have this first page with this QST notice on it, and then they have a black and white copy of the article from the magazine. So if you're a member, this is a great place to find the product reviews and old articles. The next one is the annual indexes. This only goes up to 2012. Again, that's when the magazines went online. So you can only see the indexes for the magazines years before they went online. QST in depth. This was designed originally to put in information that they couldn't fit in the magazine. Now that the magazine is available electronically, the number of these have actually went down a little bit, but they still have some stuff. It includes things such as programs, additional charts, additional information, and it goes back quite a ways. So you can actually go back and find out resources from older ones. So like there was a thing on the CW stamp identifier, a pocket-sized talking Morse computer. This is an example. This is a source code for a program. So there's the source code to download that program. Product reviews are in one separate section, and this tells you about how the product reviews are done. But the link is in here for the actual product reviews. There's also this is the information on reading the magazines digitally, in other words online, with the iOS, Android, Kindle user guide, and how they work, and how you can download them and read them offline. And here's all the apps that are listed on that page. There's also binary files for the issues between 1965 and 2010, mainly for computer programs and other purposes. QEX files, additional resources for those. The two types of mailing lists I talked about earlier, and I'll show you how you get those a little bit in a few moments here. There's also discussion groups available. Does anyone know about these? These are the ARRL online groups, and these are what I referred to earlier as the rebranded groups.io. So you can subscribe to any of these mailing lists, and when you do that, it'll look like you're doing something that says ARRL, but this is actually the groups.io rebranded site, and you have to be signed up for this to do it, and then you can join any of these mailing lists. I'm a member of all of them right now, so you can join these, and then you can also go back and look at the archives from here. But these are all available for you to join if you're an ARRL member. Now, to set up the receive bulletins via email, you need to go in and to your profile and check this opt-in, opt-out. And I actually have a screenshot of it here. So when you go in there, you're going to get this thing that says My Account. You need to go down to the bottom for opt-in, opt-out. Click on the Edit button, and then you can change any of these. So let me see if they've changed it, because they have changed this a couple times. So let's see if it's changed. So the way you get there is you come into, you sign in, and then you click on your name. See where I'm clicking at the very top? You have to click on your name. You're not going to find this anywhere else. You have to click on your name. When you do that, it's going to bring up a little bit different looking page because it uses a different system called Personify. And now it's loading that. Okay, so there's my account. And down here, well, they've changed it. Now they have it called e-letters, news, and notification, which makes a lot more sense as opposed to opt-in. So you click on that, and then you click on the edit button right here. Once you click on that edit button, you can check or uncheck any of these that you want. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not getting the Kepler here in this way anymore, but I'm subscribed to the rest of these. So when these come out, I will receive an email message as opposed to going to the website and looking up the bulletin. So it's changed from opt-in, opt-out. These are the list of all the bulletins you can get. There's also something, I mentioned the discussion groups already. There's also something called forums, and I'm curious to see whether these have been rebuilt since they are up. So there's all these ARRL forums. The problem is a lot of them are not very active. So this one here has 3 things from 2024, but the previous one before that was 2021. This one has 2023, 2022. We got some 2024s here. So these forums are picking up a little bit and people are being more active in these. That one's 2022, 2023. So these are all forums that you can engage in. You can click on these and go see information on the forum. You can post to the forums. Let me show you what one looks like. So these are the things that are there, and you can post new things. So there was an antenna installation. This is 2012. So there is one from 2022, but most of them are from 2012. But this is the ARRL forums. You can look at those if you're interested. These are all the titles. You can also send and this is one of the most interesting things. This is the ARRL section and division email log, it's called. And what you do is you pick the section or division you want to look at. So let's say we go to Great Lakes. We click on this, it'll show all the messages that the Great Lakes director has sent out to their division. And you can click on any of these messages and notice a lot of them were test messages when they were getting the system back up. But here's one for a reminder of Mother's Day and upcoming Hamfest. Depending on your division, these will vary. Now, one of the things is they're all plain text. There's no HTML, there's no formatting, they're all plain text. So let's go back to another division and see what's there. So they had the last one sent was June 22nd, 2024, and they do their newsletter via this. So this is actually, I guess, their newsletter, and as I said earlier, it's just text. You can also do any section you want instead of a division. The sections are listed below that, so we can go to South Dakota, for example, see the log. And again, you don't have to be a member of that section to go look at these, but notice the last time they sent a message was February 6th. So don't be surprised if some of your sections and some of your divisions haven't done much through this. But this is the section division email log. Now, if you are a section manager or a division director, you can do other things. There's other additional pages, but as a regular member, you can view the emails that were sent out from each of those. And that is the link right here. You can subscribe to any of those by using this and this tool. And from these, you can subscribe to different newsletters, and you can get those sent to you if they have something available. This is just what I was showing you, or just a screenshot. There's also something called ARRL Technical Information System, TIS, and it's a program from the laboratory that lets you ask questions from the staff, and they will answer this stuff for you. So these are some of the things available. There's also how-tos on technology topics, radio frequency interference, free ARRL videos, companion software for various books. This was a real problem a couple years ago because accidentally they posted the link to to the antenna book. So you could download the entire antenna book from here as a PDF for free. It lasted about 4 days. I'm not sure how many copies went out the door. The product review downloads by manufacturer, and you can search through this list. Transceiver summary, test protocol, how TIS can help you. Here's the video from the TIS. I'll let you watch that on your own. You can get a sample QST. This is just our RATPAC stuff, so I'm going to skip over all that. These are all my presentations, and again, if you'd like one for your local club, just contact me. Now, I mentioned before the pull and the push problem. You can set up tools to monitor websites changes. So if there's a site where you want to find out whenever they make a change, you can do that. Now on RATPAC, you can do that by going to the RATPAC website. And when you go there, There's a link that says get update notifications in the upper right hand corner here. It's not real straightforward yet. You do have to go through a couple steps. Once you get this spreadsheet open, which will open up like this, you need to go up here to tools and you need to put in here notification settings. And I'm gonna, normally you'd have a thing here that says that you'll get a notification. I already get a notification, so it's not gonna let me change it. But you say that you want to get a notification every time this page changes, and it will send you a link, because that's the way Google Sheets works, and that's what that thing is based on. So that'll let you get information. And the instructions are right here on the get notifications. It tells you how to do it right here. And again, it's one of the tabs. So if you're viewing it on the not from that tool, but from right here, I didn't type right. Just click on this tab right here that says get notification. It'll tell you how to do it. There's other tools out there. You can use web scraping tools. You can use some of these other tools to monitor website changes. I have one set up so that every time there's a change on the DX Engineering blog, it sends me an email and a stupid advertisement, but I can ignore the advertisement. It has nothing. It's just whoever is running the notification service sells advertising on it. You can also build your own if you're into programming. You can also set up browser extensions to be able to get information. You can set up your own homepage that you go to that has links to all the sites that you want to go to. That's a great way to do it. As you find sites, add them to an HTML page and use it as one of your open pages on your browser, and you can build your own little interface to be able to go out to these sites and not have to worry about using bookmarks. If you are involved with the club, use emails to push out information. Consider a shareable calendar so that members don't have to keep looking on your website to get information. And again, to get all resources in this presentation, tiny.cc/qst-arn, Amateur Radio News. I'll let you shoot the QR code if you'd like, and I'll be happy to take questions, comments, and all complaints go to Dan. So Dave here says he uses NetVibes for RSS integration. And got a couple of thank yous. Very good. A few folks have been talking about using AI to generate custom podcasts. There's a link in the chat, so if you're interested in that. And On All Bands has an RSS feed. Yes, it does. I need to use that instead of the other tool I'm using because the other tool sends stupid ads. But so thank you, Dave. Other questions, comments, suggestions, something I missed?
I might even remember this.
Oh, good. And again, you won't get anything out of it unless you get this information and start digging into the resources.
Okay, I don't see your hands up. Great presentation. We went a little over, but it was worth it, every bit of it. Let's put a shout out there. Anybody have a question, concern, comment, you name it, go for it. Okay. Well, Anthony, again, we owe you a lot. Appreciate it very much. A great presentation. They always are. So guys, if you got a club or organization that needs a presentation, he's the guy to knock on the door for. He'll do a good job for you.
And I'm already booking 2025, so get your request in soon.
And money you might be up the ladder on that.
I don't expect money from these. I have set a few souvenirs sent to me from various clubs, but I don't expect any payment. I did get a couple mugs and I got a t-shirt and someone sent me one of their little pocket tools, which was nice, but these are all free, just like RATPAC.
I don't know about you, but those are more valuable and mean more to me than when they send money or something like that.
Yeah.
It says a lot. Okay, anybody else got anything
Oh,
here?
I did have one other thing I forgot to mention. I told you I would find that other site, and this is it. Let me bring it up here. This is sort of the RATPAC equivalent in England now. They're doing this weekly. It's called the Pennine Ham or Pennine, and I'll put this link in the chat. This is their introduction video, but if you go to they do them on YouTube and on Zoom at the same time, so you can either watch it on YouTube or you can partake with Zoom, and you can see that I did one for them last week on the logging software, but Bob did a great one before on his 8-week DXpeditions in New Zealand and several other islands in the Pacific.
I'm not sure.
And oh, I'm not sharing it. Thank you. You should have told me that about 10 seconds ago. Okay, here we go. So this is the Pennine or Pennine Ham, and this is their YouTube page. I put the link in the chat, and you can see all their videos. I did one for them last week, but Bob did a great one on different islands. So they have a wide variety too, very similar to RATPAC, and they do it at, let me get the time here to tell you the time. Not finding it. Okay, it is, here we go, there's Nixie. It is at 1830 UTC, but I have a feeling it will be switching when the time changes, so keep an eye on that. But go to their YouTube site, take a look there, and they have some great programs, and they're in the afternoon for us here in the US as opposed to the evening. Actually, they'd even be in the morning out there on the West Coast for you guys. Okay, that's it.
Okay, well, that's it. We'll say 73s. Catch you all next week. Have a great weekend. And watch out for those trick-or-treaters. The little devils.
Mine are all done as of Sunday. We always have ours the week before, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Beats the rush.
Yes.
73s, everybody. See you next week.